Hello, my dear ones. Tonight we have another evening of psychology by the fireplace, and I'm reading the next question I selected for today's conversation. So here is the question. I live with my sister, and she is older than I am. I constantly feel uncomfortable because it seems to me that I am selfish while she is altruistic. She is always taking care of me, and deep down, I constantly feel guilty that I can't respond to her in the same way. Tell me, do I need to develop the same kind of altruism in myself as my sister has? That is an interesting question. I think here we are dealing, of course, with false altruism. Later, I learned more of the story. I won't reveal the whole case to you, but I will explain the essence. Sometimes, from childhood, a person's own wishes are pushed aside. For example, here we have two girls, two sisters, who went to live in the city without their parents. The older one began taking excessive care of the younger one. They are both already adults, but the younger sister has almost no chance to live her own grown up life and settle into it because she is constantly being treated like a child. And that tells us that the older sister most likely formed a false altruism because the younger one feels guilt, which means the older one has some ongoing expectation of getting something in return through her altruism, through her self sacrifice. And in this story, that really was the case. Later, it was corrected through family therapy for the sisters. But at the stage when this question was written, what exactly was going on there? The older sister, when the younger one was born, had already been the first child in the family, and their parents very much wanted to make her into a proper girl. She was constantly raised with phrases like, "You can't do that. What will people say? You must be a good girl. We must be proud of you." And that, by the way, is also a very damaging phrase. Why should parents be proud of a child? They should love the child and rejoice in them. But with all those constant messages, you must be our pride. What will people say? Aren't you ashamed? All her personal desires were pushed into what is called the shadow, into the shadowy corner of the subconscious. That means she was never allowed, from childhood, to be who she really was. She always had to correspond to some expectation. Since her own desires were repressed, it formed into false altruism. She had to take care of someone. She had to live for someone because she had never been allowed to live for herself. And that is exactly how false altruism can be formed. If we look at what altruism really is, it means doing something for someone with no expectation in return, no benefit for yourself. You sincerely want to help without expecting any reward. And here, it seems, the older sister also expected nothing. She simply cared for her sister from the bottom of her heart. The younger sister would come home from college and everything would already be done. Laundry, cleaning, food prepared, and the older one would just sit there and wait. Wait for what? She herself couldn't fully understand. Probably she was waiting to be appreciated, to be thanked. True altruism does not imply that at all. No gratitude is needed. Why does a real act of altruism arise? Because a person simply has an overflow of kindness, energy, and goodwill. They have so much of it that they gladly share it with someone else. Helping brings them joy. It is a joy to help, and they expect nothing. But when false altruism is formed, living for someone, because at some point living for yourself was forbidden, because the possibility of living your own life was pushed away, then it turns into this. If not for myself, then at least for someone. So let's simply look at the difference between the main signs of true altruism and false altruism. If it is true, Genuine altruism, coming from an overflow of energy, goodwill, and joy in life, then a person simply helps because they can. They have a lot of energy, a lot of kindness. They see they can help someone, so they help and then forget about it. They feel good. They feel joy that they were able to help. But in false altruism, when the ability to live for oneself was repressed, a person helps because they want to be needed, so that they will be appreciated, because that is exactly how they were formed in childhood, to receive our approval, our love, our tenderness, our warmth. You must be good. You must correspond. So they live for someone because they still want to feel needed. In true altruism, because it is done simply and sincerely, done and forgotten, no gratitude is expected, but with false altruism, gratitude is very much expected. How can it be otherwise? I live for you. I try so hard to be good. And just as a child needs the love of parents, their approval, their warmth, this remains inside as something ungrown. The person still needs to hear, I do so much for you. Please appreciate me. Please be grateful. Please tell me I'm a good girl or a very good boy. You know, like some man who is well past 40 brings flowers to his wife and then looks into her eyes like a little dog. Please tell me I'm a good boy. Please, mommy, tell me I'm a good boy. But she is not his mommy. She is his wife or his beloved woman. She wants to be beside an adult man who gives flowers because that is simply who he is, because he has the impulse of an adult man to make a woman feel good, not to earn gratitude. This does not mean such a man does not love, or that he is a bad man, or that you must urgently divorce him or break the relationship. No, it means that if you encounter some ungrown part in a loved one, in someone close or dear, you should not let them throw that feeling of guilt onto you, because a false altruist will always try to evoke a subconscious guilt in you. That is simply how it works. What matters is to understand what is going on with them and gently try to help, at least through acceptance. Of course, you should say, I value you very much, but still try to help this person grow. And if they cannot do it alone, then find a specialist who can help. There is another very important difference that helps you recognize whether you are dealing with false altruism, either in yourself or directed toward you. With healthy, sincere altruism that comes from the soul, your boundaries will always be respected. Care, help, or anything good done for you will never be forced on you. You will always be given a choice. If you want, I'll help. If you don't want, I won't. But when we are dealing with false altruism, it is very painful for the false altruist. How can that be? I want this. This is my way to earn being appreciated, to earn being needed. And now you want to deprive me of the chance to help you and sacrifice myself for you? What terrible people you are. What am I supposed to do then? I'm small. I want to be valued, and you are refusing me that. And so the person toward whom this stream of false altruism is directed ends up trapped. What if they don't want it? What if they want to live their own life? If, in this case, they do not want care that limits their freedom, then they will be called bad, ungrateful. The phrases, I've done so much for you, I live only for you, I live only because of you. If you hear that, then yes, you have definitely encountered false altruism. It needs help, but without taking guilt onto yourself. Of course, you should value what is being done for you. But you should also understand that in this case, it is not entirely healthy and the person needs help. There is another important difference. In false altruism, boundaries are violated very strongly. Not only are you deprived of freedom of choice, of saying yes or no, whether you need this help or not. It can also be very pushy. For example, a neighbor may turn out to be a false altruist and keep bringing you cookies all the time, and explaining that you are on a diet or that you simply don't eat sweets becomes nearly impossible because they get so hot. Especially if they sincerely feel affection for you, they may truly want to feed you. But most of all, it matters to them that they are needed, that they are the one treating you. You simply cannot explain to such a person that you do not need this. And yet, you still need to understand that, in their mind, they are doing something good. So while defending your boundaries, you should still keep warmth, compassion, and human feeling towards that person, not set your boundaries harshly. Especially because, in a way, the person has not grown up emotionally. But you still need to defend yourself too. At the very least, do not allow guilt to be imposed on you. And this boundary violation works like this. Not only does the person ignore whether you need their help or not, not only do they take away your right to say yes or no, but they also do it in a very intrusive way. It's like bursting into the younger sister's room in the morning, kicking the door open, already carrying a tray and a teapot. Maybe the girl was at a party and wants to sleep in on Sunday morning. No, she must be fed, tea must be brought. Everything is already arranged on the breakfast tray with a flower in a little vase. You see? So it is a very intense violation of boundaries, done with wishes of all the best. As false altruism sees it, its main need is to live for someone, because living for oneself was once forbidden. And here it is very important to remember my favorite movie, Groundhog Day, and think about how the hero first defended his boundaries harshly, but later learned to do it calmly, softly, with dignity, and still with the understanding that if we can give warmth to another person, why not give it? A false altruist also needs warmth. So you can build your boundaries very gently, without guilt, and try to explain something to the person, but softly. These are the kinds of stories that happen with false altruism. I have explained it as best I could. And you, please write in the comments whether you have encountered this and whether you still have any questions about the topic. On our channel, we share different video series. Psychology by the Fireplace is released every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific Time. And I love you, my dear ones. Until we meet again.